Welcome into the DNVR Gaming podcast. I'm your host, Drew Kreisman. With me, as always, the team of Rudo and AJ getting ready to watch the Avs in round two. But before all that, got a little gaming morning chat to talk about on this day with E3 right around the corner and getting hyped on games these days, though obviously you guys are focused on the playoffs. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming out right after the season wraps up. June 12th, E3 coming up. But we were also just having this conversation amongst ourselves that these gaming expos, that used to be huge deals, especially I feel like as all of us were coming of age in high school and college, they were these big events. And that's where you learned all the big news of the year. And now it's like there are several different gaming expos. Horizon just did their own state of play the other day that were like, our new game's coming out. We're throwing ourselves a party. We don't need anyone else to talk about it or whatever. And all of the leaks. So are you hyped for E3? Do you still get hyped for these kinds of things?
Not anymore.
Oh, man. I haven't been hyped for E3. I'm a touch younger than you guys. I used to get hyped for it all the time, but I think it was like my senior year of high school when they first decided E3 is no longer open to the public, and it like broke my heart.
That was a tough decision because going to E3 was always one of those things, right? Yep. Like when it was like, oh man, one of these days I'm gonna grow up, I'm gonna get a job, they're gonna give me money, and I'm gonna tell them no thanks. I'm going to E3 for a few days with that money they gave me. Thanks, guys, bye. And then
and like
they were like, no.
As an adult, I totally get it. Like the video game scene was way too big to like have a million people run through a convention center to try and play all these, let's be honest, shitty demos of video games. Like it was definitely better for the companies to do that. But yeah, a small part of me lost some faith in humanity that I couldn't go to E3 anymore.
And babes for you.
But in the modern era, look, one of the coolest things ever over the not so great times of the pandemic was things like BlizzCon Online, where it's things like all of these companies moving more towards like Nintendo Direct style of being like, we're going to do a show and just live stream it, and you can watch everything that we're going to do in the next year or whatever coming up. And those are dope.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where some of like E3 just loses a lot of its luster. When Blizzard just decided we're not going anymore.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like we have enough franchises, enough flagship franchises on our own that we can just have our own thing where we charge money for and turn this into a whole event where we just celebrate ourselves every year. And then a few years later, Nintendo's like, why are we going to this? And they're like, we're just going to pre-record a bunch of videos. Like it's like the trade deadline videos that Rudo and I did for the Avs this year.
Yep.
We just sat down and recorded a bunch of them about a bunch of different teams. Yeah. And it was like, it's exactly what Nintendo's been doing for what? Like 5 years, maybe longer. Yeah.
Although I will say Devolver Digital is almost single-handedly saving E3 with their press conferences. If you haven't watched a Devolver Digital E3 press conference, go watch all of them immediately. It's must see.
Yeah.
Like the press conferences used to be such a big deal.
Yeah.
You remember? Because it was like, okay, well, Microsoft just was, Microsoft is now a player. Like when E3 was going on, like Microsoft wasn't even involved in this.
Right.
The entire time, like they just showed up one day and were like, we're in the console game now. And
they had
then it was like
come out on stage, and it was like,
well, it was like there was such an element of showmanship. There was such an element of winning E3 was a huge part of
Yeah.
These three companies
Right.
were always trying to win E3. And then they started to be like, and then like EA had their own conference. And then you started to see the bigger companies would host their own. And it became less and less about Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo, especially as the reality is that console exclusives just stopped being a big deal as time went on.
Yeah.
And they started, and it was like companies were like, you know, we make way more money if we make games on both consoles.
Yeah.
I mean, the list goes on, right? There's so many iconic moments. The famous, after the Sega Saturn gets announced, Sony walks to the stage, grabs the mic, just says $299 and walks off the stage, because the Dreamcast at the time was $399. They announced,
Yeah.
and like Sony knew they had the biggest dunk in the history of video games.
Oh man,
the price stuff.
Yeah.
I remember, what was it? Which iteration of the PlayStation? Where it was like $600.
Yeah.
Everybody like universally recoiled and was like, F that.
Yeah. I think I might have been 3. Yeah.
And it all enthusiasm about, I can't even remember which one it was, if it was 3 or I think it was 3.
I think it was 3 in the 360. Yeah.
And it was like, never mind.
Yeah.
Xbox winning this generation.
Man, they just those big moments. It does look like a couple of these companies are going to try to do, and I wonder how much of it was pandemic related and things got delayed or whatever, and they're holding on to certain announcements, because it does look like Microsoft and Bethesda and Square Enix are gearing up for a little bit more of an old school style. They're having press conferences. They're promising to announce new games, update on games. They're both making big promises financially this year. So as much as it's not the same thing, and you can even branch off from E3 or whatever, but what is the best way to learn about a new game these days if it's not at an E3 or a TGS or one of these gaming expos? We talked about, the gaming awards show. They reveal a lot of stuff there, but I know I'm more into the gaming awards than you guys were or whatever, but like it. So yeah, I mean, how do you? I guess, is E3 more fun like after the fact? You'll wait until after and see whatever came out, but you'll just be excited about individual games if Bethesda announces something dope.
I think because of the number of leaks that we have leading up to it, like even in chat, Henry's already got it. The Nintendo is announcing a new Switch finally.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you can see like their stock prices has been going up because it always does, right in anticipation of the big announcement. And like we know that stuff is coming, right? Like neat.
I mean, the entire landscape of how games get announced is so different now. Like, what it was 2 years ago now, right? That Bethesda literally showed like a 35-second clip of a landscape, and they were like, "Yep, the next generation of the Elder Scrolls is coming eventually."
Yeah.
And
sometimes it's okay to be quiet.
Yeah, but I mean, just the internet culture, like leaks on games go so far, and there's so many rabid fans that just are constantly digging into the info that it's like you could wake up on any given day and there's some massive news story if you run in the right circles about the video game company and what's next for them.
Yeah. There is something though about seeing it. I'm with our guys, assume this is Matt, but our guys over at Crashing Game Night, give them a follow. They're fantastic. But talking about needing to see, Halo, for example, it's like, it's one thing to have the announcement, to have the leak, but at some point you got to show us the game. We got to be able to play the game. Are you guys demo guys these days? Because demos used to be, you maybe got one if you bought another game or it came in a cereal box or some shit. Now it's just, you go on to your device, whatever you're using, console or PC, you download a demo. Is that the best way to decide these days whether something's for you or not?
It is for me.
So, I mean, I had the Xbox magazine for a while growing up, so you get the demo discs with those. I think now I'm more of a demo guy now than I ever was. We've talked before on the show. If you haven't watched, go back and find it, about the hype cycle of video games and how games just get torn the hell apart because they get overhyped and never live up to it. A quality demo will give you a realistic expectation for what a game is going to be.
Wow.
And I mean, there's another conversation there too about how often do demos even exist anymore? Companies will just be like, here's our beta. Pay us to play the beta version of our game. Like,
yeah.
Well, I mean, on Steam, you have the entire early access community,
Yeah.
right? Where now it's just like, and some of these games just never leave it.
Yeah. All that stuff. Again, these are just all the reasons why, getting together in one place to announce a brand new video game just isn't quite the the spectacle that it used to be.
And like, don't get me wrong, those demos at E3 are absolutely curated to the absolute max of, they're like, all right, you're going to play this exact 6 minutes of our game, and it's going to be the prettiest part of the game that we have. But it still gives you a feel for how the game actually plays.
Yeah. And,
you're open.
Yeah. And again, we talked about this earlier too, with the access and everything. I know Crashing Game Night gets to go and cover it. And they've done that in the past. You can check them out on YouTube and stuff. And like, if given the opportunity to tag along with Matt and the boys, I would jump at that 100,000%.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Brandon, sorry, I got to take a couple days. I'm going to E3.
Are you kidding? If you told Brandon that, Brandon would be like, all right, I'm going
with you.
Yeah.
So as much as we're all sitting here saying, hey, look, it's not what it used to be. It's too bad. Sitting here, we're probably not all three of us I'll probably watch the Square Enix presser, obviously, because I'm curious in their products. And but even then, it's funny because, like you said, the leaks are basically out. There's already the rumors about there's going to be a Souls-like Final Fantasy game. So if and when they announce that, I'm going to be hyped. But I'm like, yeah, okay, we knew that was coming. Some of these other things and as we talked about with their big MMO with Final Fantasy 14, they have their own stuff. Like they just a couple of weeks ago held a big party and were talking about their new expansion and revealed a bunch of stuff. So it's just like, I
know about that now.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right. You guys are in. Like still very, very new though, right? Just downloaded it. Have you even started yet, or you're getting?
Oh yeah, I'm level 22 now.
Okay. What class are you playing?
The Black Mage.
Nice. All right. Yeah. Well, I'll be curious once you get a little further into that. What do you think of it, especially as an MMO veteran?
We'll be when this pod finishes up, we'll be playing it this afternoon before Avs game.
Grant's in with Let's Go Avs and Let's Go Skyrim 2021.
Sometimes games have to die.
It's time for Skyrim, man.
Yeah, it's time to go.
Well, it's like it's like GTA 5.
Yeah,
which is like which has been a launch title on like what three different consoles
now. Yeah,
you're like, how is this still appealing?
Come on, man. Okay. All of that said, let's first do some hypothetical announcements, and then we'll do some stuff we know about. Is there anything that Microsoft that's within the realm of like what would be an announcement that would make you go, oh damn, E3 was kind of lit this year, or whatever? Just like, is there something that could come out of some of these companies, or like, is there something about the Super Nintendo Switch that would get you more excited about it beyond just knowing that it exists? And any of these things.
What's its battery life?
Now we're talking. It's that the new price point. Battery life is new price point.
Yeah, because that's literally the one complaint I have about my Switch.
Yeah,
is that it's just the battery life needs to be a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything about the Switch that could really sell me. on it being an unbelievable announcement since you already know the new one's coming.
Yeah.
But for Bethesda, I suppose if they were to announce that Starfield was going to release this year, I would be super hyped.
There we go. There's a thing.
But I don't think it's even remotely possible that that game is ready before 2022. So
right. Yeah, and I'm with Matt. I'd like to see where Metroid is. Very
That's the thing. Like, there's a bunch of franchises that we could just pull names out of and be like, give me that, and I'll be happy.
Just go back to the well. Every company in video game history.
Well, and it's like Nintendo. It's like, where's my F-Zero game?
Yeah.
You know?
I was actually hanging out with some friends a couple of days ago, and they've got this cool, weird, like Nintendo emulator thing. It's not the SNES Classic. It's something else entirely. It's got like every Nintendo game on it. And I pulled up F-Zero, and they hadn't heard about it. And our friend Amanda was like, wait, is this like Mario Kart, but in the future and with hovercrafts? I was like, that nailed it. That's exactly what it is. Much harder.
Yeah.
Well, right. But she's like, why isn't there more of this? And I was just like, I don't know.
Yeah. I had Dolphin for a long time.
Yeah, I've messed around with Dolphin as well.
Yeah. So then beyond that, because you're right, we could all just point to the classic, franchises and say more new, better of this would be good. When was the last time you can remember something totally new getting announced that did surprise you, that you hadn't heard of before, and you went, oh, that actually looks pretty dope? It doesn't have to be the exact last time. It's not like we've all got, inside, but can you think of a time in recent? I'll give you one if while you're thinking of it. When Elden Ring was announced not too long ago, that kind of came out of nowhere. From the From Software guys, and George R.R. Martin apparently has enough time to write a video game before finishing those novels. But that was just kind of an out of the blue, like, oh, well, and almost exists. Like, they showed very little in terms of what the game's actually going to be, right? It's existing largely on its credentials and like one teaser trailer now, but still, I remember that grabbing my attention. As just a totally new IP. Biomutant's the other one, which looks super dope and is now getting mixed reviews. But
those reviews are not encouraging, man.
They're not. I'm bummed because it looked like there was so much potential. I'll still check it out eventually, but you see a new IP and you go, hey, look, people are being creative. I want to embrace this. And then it goes, oh, maybe they weren't being quite as creative as you thought. I don't know.
I mean, the last one that really truly got me super hyped was years and years ago now, but when they announced Wildstar, I was super pumped on it. It was it was the same vein of every MMO at the time, where they're like, this one's going to be the next WoW killer, blah, blah, blah. But
this is the death of WoW.
Yeah, and it never is. It never is. Nope. But it was the first time in a long time where I felt like a game took some risks in the genre that it's in. Like, it tried to implement other things from other game styles that other people weren't really doing.
Yeah.
And again, in the modern day, it's really hard for me to get too hyped on anything because I see the trailer and I'm like, that looks super dope. This game looks fun, but I have no idea how it's going to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my thing, is that there's always a teaser trailer stopped being meaningful to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm always just like, all right, cool. Show me gameplay. How does it actually function? Because that's where I'm going to be spending all my time. Anybody can make a cool 2.5 minute video. Like, wow, look at this amazing game that we're building. And it's just like, all right.
What was the, now I'm blanking on it. The most famous one. There was the big war game that did that for, I think it was that same console, the PS3, Xbox 360. And it was some E3, and they released this trailer, and it just looked like beyond believably amazing. And that's because it wasn't, they were running it on like the most powerful computers possible. And it was all pre-rendered, and none of it was gameplay. And it was, I feel like that was one of the worst examples of that having ever happened, and the industry in general has been trying to recover ever since. I wish I could remember. You guys remember what I'm talking about?
I don't.
It's a Warzone or something like that. I don't think the game ended up being all that.
It would have been like Modern Warfare or something.
Yeah,
back in that era.
No, earlier than Watch Dogs, JC. A little bit older than that, but
Black Ops, maybe. Who knows? I don't know.
Henry, I'm also curious about the Sonic Colors thing, actually. But Sonic is experiencing a quiet little comeback in the last couple. Sonic Team Racing is dope. Speaking of kart racers, if you're into it, the movie, we've obviously talked about that. So I'm curious if the Sonic franchise can do some fun things.
It's always been in a tough spot to reinvent itself.
Killzone.
Killzone. Yeah, that's
JC
right.
got it.
That's right.
You know, those games actually ended up being okay.
Yeah, they were fine. They weren't,
I mean, really liked the online multiplayer was cool because it would like drop you into sets of games.
Yeah.
And like it was like, okay, you've got your team versus this team in a best of 5 with rotating game types. It wasn't just like team deathmatch, first 1 to 50, go, 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 go. And it was, oh God.
Yeah. Doing this again.
Because that's where shooters lost me, although I was deep in the minority on that opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of same though. So
boy. Yeah, and then I found CSGO and that was that. But I mean, let's be honest, did Sonic not have anywhere to go but up after Sonic Boom? Like,
yeah. It's been a rough decade and a half at least for Sonic. Yeah, it'd be nice to see one of gaming's early flag bearers like return a little bit, because that's been rough. Castlevania doing it, but mostly on the TV side. They haven't had a good Castlevania game in a while. That's another franchise I'd like to see actually produce a video game, but at least we've got content there. Or like Mega Man has been in a weird rut for a while too, those old franchises.
Yeah, there was like that brief revival where a couple of Mega Man games came out and they were the old school style.
Yeah.
And then
I mean,
silent.
Mega Man does seem like a franchise that's hard to bring into like a modern style of video game. And don't get me wrong, they could just make another side scroller and it'd be dope. But
to innovate or do something different.
I mean, Streets of Rage 4 just came out and it's just like it's all nostalgia.
Yeah. And it's dope.
Yeah, I mean it's really fun,
but
and it's hilarious unlocking all the old characters from the earlier Streets of Rage games.
Yeah,
you get dropped in there and you're playing with them, and you're like, "Wow, this is so crazy!"
Yeah,
it's a great time, but you know, it's the same thing. New Battletoads came out last year, and sat down and beat that with some friends in one night. You know,
that's too easy for a battle.
Yeah, dude, that's honestly that's what I want. I want more games that buy into the hard to play of old video games. And look, I get Dark Souls series exists. Honestly, I think it's a little bit overhyped on how difficult it is. It's not easy, but you have people running around breezing through these games with playing no hit runs, like they never get hit runs.
Right.
And like a great example is Shovel Knight. The end of Shovel Knight with all the expansions and everything is unbelievably difficult. Yeah. And that's great, but I want to see a true AAA title with like that level of difficulty in it.
Yeah. And again, that's something that Castlevania could do. It took me 15 years to beat Castlevania 3. I never beat Castlevania 1, and I played that game a lot.
It was hard. Part of it is just that those old NES games like that were really unforgiving, man. Like you get 3 lives.
Yeah. You go all the way back to the beginning when you die.
Like, oh, hey, there's 15 levels here through this castle that you have to work your way through or whatever, and
I think
it's a lot of work.
Second to last episode of the Castlevania show, that my understanding is this last season is going to be its final season, was basically an homage to that, of like, it's just like absolutely absurdly difficult, constant run where it feels like the characters on screen memorized the level. It really is like, because that was the way to beat those games. And I could still probably run through by muscle memory level 5 of Castlevania 3. So I'm with you there in some respects, but I ain't got time for that shit these days. There's the other part of me. Yeah. I don't have time to play a game for 2 hours and not have gotten anywhere.
Yeah.
In college, give me that. Give me that all day. That was my jam in college. But now it's like I want to have progressed 2 hours in the story or the whatever, So I'm a wimp. I'm a wimp these days. I'm playing Horizon on regular difficulty, not easy though, and so that game presents a challenge. I feel like
when you guys fire up games, how do you go about picking their difficulty? Is it like you just grab the hardest one that you can, or is it like a mixture of them depending on the game?
I would say for me, it's never the middle. It's either like I boot up the game and I'm like, I want to feel like Superman today and set it on easy and go off. Or I boot up the game and it's like, I want you to abuse me. Please hurt me.
Hurt me, game.
Yeah.
Make it hurt.
That's definitely, yeah. I don't ever pick the easy in anything.
Yeah. It really depends on the game for me, because there's a lot of games, like I said, especially with limited time, there are some games I will play just for the story, or mainly for the story and a little bit of the gameplay and all that. And I'll put some of those on easy, but it's been a while since I've done that. I'm trying to think. I actually do go with normal most of the time, because I don't need the excessive challenge, but I don't want to feel like I'm cheating the game either. Like I want a little bit of something. But they did an interesting thing with the Final Fantasy VII Remake where hard mode actually plays differently. It's not just like more of a challenge. There's that too, but there are certain caveats, like you're not allowed to use items. So it changes the nature of the gameplay, and there's more things that you have access to on hard mode. So that game fully rewards you for choosing to go on hard mode, not just with more of a difficulty, but with other stuff. So I was like, yeah, if more games did that, I would probably choose the more difficult challenge if I felt like I was getting more than just more of my time sucked away from losing. But, yeah, kind of like that. I'll start normal, pump it up if it's too easy, if I need the challenge, but I'm also not quite as good at video games as I used to be. Great at the show. Maybe it's because I just put it all into one. just play the show these days, because I feel like my mechanic, like playing Horizon, has been like relearning how to play action games all over again. And the dodge, find the weak spot and hit it mechanic is like relearning how to ride a bike or something.
It's hard not to mono game as an adult. Like
Yeah. I try to jump around a little bit. I'm lucky that Katie has gotten into games a bit, so there are some that she likes, and so she wants to play Bug Snacks or Horizon or whatever, and so that helps get with the diversity. We were going to get into Biomutant if it had, rated out better. And again, I don't like trusting the ratings all the time. So, people are ranking this bad, so it's probably bad. We might love it. I don't know, but I'm going to have to, play a demo now or figure out, or maybe
that's
counted and those kinds of things. It's
I typically it's like, okay, what are the complaints?
Yeah.
Because it's like, what am I after? What am I interested in the game for? And how much of the complaints come from that interest?
Right.
Where it was like Wastelands 3 came out, I think last year. It's been billed as like XCOM with friends.
Yeah.
And I was a huge XCOM fan. I'm like, yes, please.
Yeah.
And then you go and you read all the reviews for it, and all the reviews are like, this game is really good unless you try and play online with your friends, where the online just doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that was
the whole selling point.
A lot of the interest for me. So
right.
I will be waiting on that until it's fixed.
Yeah. Yeah. Same thing happens with the show. Like, people will trash or love the game based entirely on modes I've never touched. I've been playing the game for 12 years, and Road to the Show is a big one. A lot of people really love taking their guy through the minors, having him become the thing. Road to the Show, that's a very popular mode. I played it once or twice back in the day. It wasn't for me.
I love it. I wish the Rockies would stop trading me.
Really? You want to play for this team?
I keep trying, like, oh God, I even go back, like, I win the MVP and I like turn down $350 million from the Astros, and I'm like, please let me go back to Coors Field and sign with the Rockies. I want to play for you.
But Dick Mumford's like,
and I get a month into my like bullshit contract that they're giving me, because it's like fake money. Who cares?
Right.
And they trade me to the Rangers or the Cardinals, and I'm just like, stop it! I just want to play for this goddamn franchise.
That's too realistic, MLB The Show.
I'm like, golly. Rockies are punishing me for being I want to play for you.
That's brutal. Yeah. So is there anything coming up just in general? I guess we can finish out on this. What are we most hyped for these days? What are we playing? I know you guys are really busy, but what are you planning on getting back into a little bit more once the Avs, run through and walk away with Lord Stanley's Cup?
9.1.
Yeah, by the time the Avs are done, hopefully 9.1 is the thing. In this quick little break since the Avs made quick business of the first round, I've actually been playing a little bit of Track Mania, if you know or don't know what that is. It's been around forever. The base game is totally free to play. It's basically just the current game without going into the arcade, because games have arcades where you can do virtually anything these days. But the main base game is 25 tracks that changes seasonally, that everyone in the game can just run. Most of them are anywhere from 15 to like seconds to like 2 minutes long. And people just play them, and you race and compare times, and people go insane trying to get these times like stupidly low. Like I think like my goal on it is to get most of my times to like top 50 in Colorado, and I have a couple that are top 50 in Colorado that are like 200,000th in the world.
Wow. All right. Let's check that out. Fascinating.
It's just been revisiting the catalog for me. On PC, I played through Valkyria Chronicles 4 again. On the Switch, I've been replaying my way through Fire Emblem. And then because I played through the original Fire Emblem, which they released over the winter. They westernized it for the first time.
Oh, right.
And I'd never played it, obviously. So I played through that. That game is interesting. They don't tell you anything about it. Like, the fact that I play Fire Emblem like means I know how to like more or less understand what I'm doing. They didn't tell you anything about it. They just dropped you into the field and they were like, good luck.
Have at it.
Like, you don't know anything about like the little system that they have where it's, they have like the little weapon triangle, and you have to be in the right matchup, and there are certain things that you avoid. And it was interesting because they just didn't tell you anything. They literally drop you into the field, the opening field in the first game, and they're like, all right,
go.
Yeah, go do your thing.
Rock and roll.
You're just like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to smoke this whole field of people then. So
that's actually an interesting conversation to me. As I'm sure AJ knows, like, I've gotten my wife into WoW quite a bit over the last year or so. And I love my wife to death, and she's a very solid WoW player, but
an important qualifier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's very solid WoW player. She doesn't even struggle. She's good. But there are a few things that happen where, because I've been playing video games my entire life, she's like, "Oh, how do I do this thing?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? You just do it.
You just do the thing. Play the game.
Yeah.
Win at it better."
Yeah. It's like hard for me to even like describe and tell her what to do, because it's like I've been doing this in every video game in my entire life for 29 years now. So it's not even something I consciously register.
I have a similar issue with the fiance.
Good to know I'm not alone, at least.
Well, because we play Overcooked together.
Oh boy.
And it's not so much of a we want to murder each other. It's I didn't know that she had no experience with console gaming. She didn't play console games growing up, so she's not comfortable with the controller.
I was going to say the controller is just yeah.
And so when we play, I'm kind of putting her on blast here, but when we play, it's so funny sometimes because when she moves around, she moves in straight lines.
Yeah, Katie does the same thing.
She'll like turn, and then run, and then turn, and then run, and it's just like you can run diagonally. You can save yourself a lot of time, and she's just not comfortable with it.
Right.
And you think back, and it's like I was so young when I picked up my first console. I don't remember learning these things.
Right.
I've only just known how to do them my whole life.
Right.
And so it blew my mind. Like when she was like, "Well, I never did it." I just assumed like she's been a video game player for such a long time.
Right.
That I didn't know, and then like watching somebody learn that. I understand like the dual stick thing in like an FPS. That's complicated. It is not in any way intuitive. It feels. I remember learning that, and it was awful.
Yeah.
Like I remember time splitters and sitting down and being like, "This is so foreign to me." But her learning how to just like use a controller in general, I was like,
"Well,
wow."
And I do think part of it is modern games do make it easier, right? Like I'm sure you guys remember growing up, even before dual stick, like playing Super Mario 64, and you just go a direction and the camera's just like, "Nah, dude, we're good." Yeah. And it's like, no, you just deal with it. You just have to run towards the camera on this one and hope you don't fall off. It's fine.
Yeah.
When they had buttons designed specifically for that camera.
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts 1 had maybe the worst camera setup of any game I've ever played, where it was kind of auto zoom tagged to the R1 and L1 buttons. So you could swing the camera, but to like kind of predetermine. It was awful. It was, and those are buttons that could have been used for like blocking or doing moves or any number. So it's just the most complicated, awkward situation. Like this sucks. By Kingdom Hearts 2, they figured out you put the camera on the right stick. I think everyone figured that out after a while, but and even that becoming intuitive of like, no, you can move the camera around. Katie forgets it all the time. Like, you just move the stick. And it's wild.
They don't know the pain of having to stop moving to aim your gun in GoldenEye.
Right.
Oh, jeez.
The anxiety. Using the C stick for the camera in Turok.
Oh, Jesus.
C stick or buttons or whatever. Oh, man.
Such a weird thing.
It was a weird thing. It was a very strange thing. But still, hooray for the GameCube. I just sold mine. I actually just traded in a bunch of old video game consoles because we're getting ready to move, and I don't have a TV to plug them into anymore. I don't have any games for them. I don't have controllers for them. I don't even think I've got the full plugs for them. But still, I shed a single tear of sadness when I traded in my GameCube and my Dreamcast and an old DS. And I could have held on to them, I guess, but I don't know for what. Maybe 20, 30 years from now, those are worth something, but I don't know.
it's wild to me that the handheld market just sort of disappeared.
It stopped.
Like I used to play my 3DS all the time.
Yep.
And now, part of that is like the Switch, right? Like they figured out a way to combine it.
Even phones, right?
But I mean, sure. Like mobile games are enormous. It's an enormous market. I'm literally playing a mobile game on my computer right now. Well, it's playing itself, but I'm doing my daily chores. And it's just crazy to me that like the handheld market was so big. Like our entire lives, it was like the Game Boy and and then
when they announced the PSP, it was crazy.
Yeah, and then you had the chick that licked the PSP and put it into the stratosphere for nerds, and it was like handhelds were always like a thing that kind of ran on their own timeline.
Yeah. Yep.
Within a company, and then they were just done with it. Like Microsoft like jumps into the console game and is like, handhelds, we're good.
Have you seen the size of our controller? You think we're gonna make a handheld?
Yeah.
Put a screen on the Xbox controller.
Yeah. It would have been the Switch before the Switch.
Totally. That's interesting. I wonder, but I do think, playing stuff on the phones, like there's a lot of old, like you can play pretty much every old 2D Final Fantasy game on your phone. So I wonder.
It is interesting that they have
franchises and stuff.
More than a few ports for sure.
Yeah, that they've done that. That especially the Final Fantasy franchise has gone hard into the paint with we're gonna port this to everything. Like I can buy the old Final Fantasies on every shop on every device.
Yeah.
Imaginable.
Yeah.
It's so smart.
And then when you've got a back catalog like that where people are just like, these games are great, everyone should play them, and they're like, we'll make them readily available on Switch and Steam and mobile devices and in the PlayStation Store, except for Tactics for some reason. Drives me nuts. The only way to have played the most updated version of Final Fantasy Tactics, which is an extraordinary game, it was a PSP game. So if you got a PSP in Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions, congratulations to you. None of the rest of us can play it. It's not on Steam. It's not on...
They were pretending that it didn't exist.
Yeah. Jerks. Love that game. And bring back Chrono Trigger. I think they put that on Steam, but my understanding is that the Steam port of Chrono Trigger sucks. So I don't know. I haven't played it.
Most Steam ports suck.
Make Steam ports better then.
What the Robin Leonard is starting game 1?
They're starting Leonard? What a universe.
Oh, I'm glad I wrote my whole preview about Marc-Andre Fleury.
And on that note, these guys are going to go get ready to watch some hockey. I'm going to go watch some, I'll call it baseball. When it's the Rockies playing the Pirates, it's borderline, but we'll keep you updated on whether or not any of these stuffs we did or did not get hyped for. I guess we're only getting so hyped these days. Go up. I'm still going to get hyped for whatever the Square announcement is, obviously, but beyond that,
everybody talks big until the announcements actually happen, and then we all fanboy out. Like,
oh my god, it looks amazing.
Yeah,
I hope there's new stuff. That's my big hope for E3 is that, because you never know what companies haven't told us yet, and I hope there's some legitimate surprises. It's always one of the fun things, or it used to be one of the fun things about these. They've been fewer and farther between over the years, but hit us with some surprises. So thank you all for hanging out with us for this episode of the DNVR Gaming Podcast. Let us know what you'd like to see at E3, what you're most hyped on, what you'd like to hear us talk about in future episodes of the DNVR Gaming Podcast. And let us know what you're playing. One of the best ways to do that is to become a subscriber to the DNVR.com. First, you get all the sports content and all the written content, obviously. You get constant discounts. But you also get to hang out with us in the Discord channel, talking video games 24/7. So let us know what you're playing, what you're digging on, what you want to hear about in the coming weeks, and what you want us to be playing as these guys ultimately will wrap up their season. And I will, not be covering the postseason this year. So we're going to have some interesting time once we get to the end of summer and into fall for some gaming. So thank you all for hanging out with us. We appreciate you. For AJ and Rudo, I've been Drew, and we will see you next time.